A different millennium. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and just another note, my passion actually is coaching in organizations. My mission is humanizing the workplace everywhere.
Different.
And so it's fantastic that that I get to do this work through Coactive.
Yay.
Yay.
My name is Anthony Parry. I'm a Brit. I live in West Sussex, down on the south coast. I've been a coach for only 20 years and a faculty member for 15, 18 years. My passion is that this stuff spreads in the world. So I love working with coaches, and I also sort of work with creative odds and ends, I think would be my practice.
Fantastic. And Anthony, I think you were joking when you said 20 years because you were an important person at CTI when I joined the faculty in 2007.
Oh, really? Well, I joined it in 2005. So I started coaching in 2002. So yeah,
Okay.
and it could be 5 minutes because it's been that much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is coaching? A lot of you will probably have had experience of coactive coaching. Some of you have probably had no experience of coactive coaching. So we have an official definition. I think, is that the right time for the slide? If we
Uh,
can do,
I think we can do it. Yeah, let's do it.
okay.
All right, and V's going to show us. Here we go. Partnering
Yeah.
with individuals in a thought-provoking process, create a process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And that definition is given to us by the International Coaching Federation. A lot of you
Yeah.
have probably heard of the ICF. That is the international body that oversees standards and ethics for the coaching profession.
Mm.
Thank you,
I
V.
I have a variation which I've learned from a very wise former colleague who has passed on. He said coaching is about a life to be well lived, not a problem to be solved.
Hmm.
Which I think is we're really coaching people into their own magnificence.
Yeah. And I think there are some reasons why I think coaching is particularly powerful as an approach. You probably all had experiences where you've given people advice and that advice has gone nowhere. I'm guessing that that's common. So we know that that's not the best way to provoke change for another person. And they're really supporting a person in finding their own solutions and identifying their own resources, coming up with their own commitments. They're often going to be much more bought in to their own ideas and much more committed to following through on future actions. So that's, for me, that's the power of coaching, is supporting people in finding their own way and owning the next steps that they're going to take so that they're more committed to those steps.
Exactly. I mean, you might have the brightest idea and the best solutions. If the client or the other person doesn't buy into what's important to them, you could be speaking to a brick wall. Yeah, this is why coaching works.
Yeah. So V, we're going to ask you to, there we go. Exactly.
Yeah,
You read
what do
my
you
mind.
expect? Yeah, so at the end of this session, there's going to be a place for questions. So if you want something else or you want more of one of those things, then please let us know at the end.
So a little bit of what we're doing right now, which is what is coaching, and then we're going to focus on sharing a coaching tool. We're going to demonstrate how to use that tool, and then we'll do a debrief, talk about the coaching skills that that we typically use in coaching. So that's
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, and then we'll throw the floor open to Q&A. So V, thank you for that slide. Yeah. Oh, we have to design our alliance, which is one of the really important parts of the coactive model. In all coaching relationships, we always have the permission to say, what do we want and what do we need?
Mm-hmm.
So I
And
love that.
so, yeah.
Yeah, nothing in this webinar is scripted. Good. Okay.
And what that means is sometimes Anthony and I may interrupt each other and step on each other's toes. We would rather give you all an authentic experience than something scripted. So sometimes the authentic comes with a little bit of stumbling and
Yeah.
occasionally interruptions.
And we are modeling what happens in all our courses, that we have two leaders who have a coactive relationship. Not always smooth. Sometimes we disagree. Sometimes we really do agree. But it's to show the power of relationship.
The confidentiality is here because it's an important part of any coaching interaction. The confidentiality agreement that we make with our clients or coachees is a foundation for trust in that relationship. If you're being coached and you don't trust that what you're saying is going to be confidential, you might say less. You might not be fully you. So the exception here is that the coaching demonstration we're going to show you, obviously, because it's in front of over 50 people, it won't be fully confidential. And we're going to ask all of you to also not gossip about what's being said or shared here.
Yeah, we often say in our courses, concentrate on what the coach is doing and being, rather than actually on the content of the coaching. Mm-hmm. That is the way that you'll appreciate what coaching is or isn't. Mm-hmm. So, go on.
Our volunteer will be bringing a real topic for the coaching session. I'll be doing the coaching. I know our volunteer's name is Renee. I've not met her, and I don't know what her topic's going to be. So that's going to be, we'll all get to be surprised.
Yeah. However, we are going to use a specific coaching tool, which is very common. It's used by lots and lots of coaches, and it's called the Wheel of Life.
There we go. And this version of the Wheel of Life is specifically for the work or business context. So we call this one the professional Wheel of Life. And you can see the topics here are very business oriented.
Yeah. There can be wheels of life for love. There can be wheels of life for any sector of your life, but this happens to be about business. What we do is we ask clients to look at that wheel of life and to measure their level of satisfaction. 1 is very low, 10 is very high, and to mark each of the segments. It is just a snapshot, and it's a great place to start the coaching.
And want to underscore something that Antony was saying, that it's about measuring satisfaction in each of these areas. It's not a quantitative measure. So for example, if you look on the left side, staying on top of my email and voicemail, it doesn't mean that you've gotten your inbox down to 0. It means, how are you feeling about the state of your inbox?
Yeah, you might look at your inbox only once a week, and you're completely satisfied with that. Your time management, you might be working 20 hours a day, and you're completely satisfied with that. Again, it's not how good or bad it is; it's how satisfied you are.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. I think we have a next slide to kind of show you what it looks like when clients are filling this out. There we go. So they're giving a number score and also kind of marking along each wedge of this wheel to correspond with that number.
So by the time they filled it in completely, you've got a visual representation of how smooth and how satisfied their working life is. And then typically the coach will say, what's the one area that you would want to work on? The coach doesn't say, well, what's the worst or what's the best? It empowers, or he or she empowers the client to say, oh, I'd like to look at that one.
And also really important that the client or coachee is making the choice about what area they want to work on. So that also differentiates coactive coaching from some other approaches. It's not that the coach looks at it and says, oh, we better work on this one. Like, we're not deciding, the client is deciding.
Yeah. This is particularly true when you're working with clients in a business environment who might be told, well, you need to look at this. No, the relationship is open and the client is designing what they want to work on.
Very important. We call this holding the client's agenda. It's a crucial part of coactive coaching. And I think it does differentiate us from other approaches.
Yeah. So right. Chuck, I think we're ready for you to model some coactive coaching.
All right. That's great. Thank you, V. Okay, so what will happen in just a moment? Our client Renee is going to join me on stage, and Antony, I just want to check with you if there's anything we should be designing about.
Well, I think that you said that you'd like a heads up at about 10 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the joys of coaching is that it can be so absorbing that you forget where you are and what's happening and what time is. I'm going to go backstage, and then at 10 minutes I'll pop back, say hello, and pop off again. Does that
Okay,
work for you,
great.
Chuck?
Yep, and I'll target to be complete with the coaching session after around 15 minutes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I am disappearing. I am off. Bye.
All right, terrific. Okay, great. And that means Renee will probably be joining us in just a moment. We are working behind the scenes. There she is. Hello, Renee.
Hi. Hi, Chuck.
Hi. Are you hearing and seeing me okay?
I can hear you okay. And Chuck is right?
It is Chuck. Yes. Yes.
Good.
It's great to be meeting you. Thank you for volunteering for this coaching session. Sure. That I know I can see we've got about 58 people here, and I'd love to design with you that, like, for the next few minutes, it's just going to be you and me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fine. I am.
Okay.
I am fine with this. I'm not nervous or anything.
Okay, good.
Fine.
All right. And before we go into your topic and what you want coaching on, just wanted to take a moment for a quick designed alliance between you and me. So is there anything you would want me to know about you that would kind of help me or help you feel comfortable with the coaching?
I wouldn't. Could you give me an example of something? I wouldn't know.
Okay.
What kind of thing that would be helpful?
Okay.
There are many things about me.
Okay. And for me, I would ask you, is it okay if I occasionally interrupt to kind of keep the conversation on track?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Great.
Yeah. No. Could you give me an example of something that would help you
understand?
Yeah, like
that. Like if you're giving me too much detail, I might interrupt and ask you to, kind of bottom line what you're saying, like that kind of thing.
I understand,
okay?
But I meant the former thing.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Well, sometimes clients will say like, the clients will say like, I sometimes have a hard time, getting to the point or being clear. It's okay to interrupt me, like that kind of thing. People ask, right?
Okay. Yeah. No,
right?
I'm pretty easygoing. So.
All right. Good. All right. Sounds good. So you had a chance to look at your wheel, and
yes,
and you've chosen an area to work on. What's the area you wanted to work on in our conversation today?
I think I remember it being. I took a picture before of the wheel, but I think I remember it being my contribution to the team.
Okay.
Or in the team.
Yeah, your contribution.
Is that a section?
I think so.
Yeah.
But we'll go with your topic. That's great. So your contribution to the team. Yeah. And if you're looking at your contribution to the team, how would you rate that right now on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think below 5, maybe between 3 and 5.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually the only area that I'm not satisfied with. Yeah.
I actually felt a shift when you first brought it up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you said between 3 and 5, what's it like to what's happening that actually gives it that score?
So what I feel is that I can't really fully contribute the way I think I could because I don't have the role. And I am not a hierarchical person. I need people eye to eye. It's my nature. But in corporate, which is where I am, sometimes you have to accept certain structures, right? And I can see how time and again in my career, I am placed in a project or somewhere where there's a lot of leadership needed. And it's great when we have more than one leader. But the official leader then at some point gets scared of being challenged too much, or of of there being a competition. And that's always gotten in my way.
Yeah. So it sounds like you want to actually, well, what I'm kind of hearing is you would like to take more of the leadership, because you feel like, yeah, go ahead.
I would like to use more of my talents and have the freedom to do it.
Yeah.
And not be restrained. I don't really care too much about titles or positions. I care about what I do.
Yeah.
And that the fact that I can do it.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm really more interested in the goal than, the title and the prestige and all of that, or the power. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I'm really hearing here is that you want to do more, you can do more, and the structures that you're in are feeling like they're holding you back.
Yeah. But it keeps happening. So I'm somebody that says, well, what's the common denominator between all the situations? It's me. Right? So how can I make a shift in order for these things not to have these blockages not to present themselves anymore to me?
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of challenge that I see now. So I can't really see at the moment how I could, like, what's that shift that I need to make in order for these blockages to go away?
It's such a great question. So may I give it back to you? What is the shift that you need to make?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
So, because I feel like that tells me that you've been in this conversation with yourself for a while too, right? Like you keep asking yourself that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's try something a little different today. So the starting point here, somewhere between a 3 and a 5 on that scale.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at a higher number. Now you don't have to commit to anything here, but what if it were a 9? What would it look like if you were at a 9 in team contribution?
I would have the freedom.
You would have the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would not be seen as a threat, but rather as an asset.
Yeah. And what would you be contributing at that point?
Well, do you mean like subject matter? Because that's gonna create a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I don't need the details on the subject matter,
so
of course. You know that.
Like, yeah. So one of my particular strengths that I'm being feedbacked to, about, is that I'm able to convince people. So I have a strong influencing talent.
Yeah.
And that gets blocked because I don't get access to the people that I would need to get access to in order to convince them.
Yeah.
And right now our project is dying, basically. And it would need people that can influence others. And so I think I would be given the freedom, or have the freedom, to have those conversations.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really confident that you could make important differences if you had the leeway to do it.
Yeah, when I do have it, I usually achieve what I want, what I set on to achieve. So if somebody can give me a goal and I achieve it, or we discuss and make the goal together and then I achieve it. It's usually I deliver. Yeah.
Yeah. And Renee, what do you find yourself avoiding?
Avoiding.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm also sometimes quite unpopular because I see problems arising very early before they are a problem. And then I warn, and then people are like, oh, so dramatic. And then I say, well, just you wait. And then just they wait. And it happens exactly the way I thought it would. And then that gives me sort of sometimes, the dramatic pessimist, right? But actually I'm a very optimistic person. I just like to prevent stuff.
Right.
And so what I'm avoiding is to be too much seen like that, like this negative person. And also these tough conversations. I'm quite comfortable having a very tough conversation, but I appreciate that I have done quite a lot of self-development.
Yeah.
Where I am very comfortable with these things, and then I overwhelm others because they're not comfortable with so much discomfort.
10 minutes.
Thanks, Antony. Right.
And that's something I'm managing. So I'm avoiding to have these particular tough conversations where I would be like, hey, to use the language, something is hitting the fan. It's because I think it's because this and this. How can we solve it? Yeah. And then that person would have to sort of step beyond themselves and let the team handle it and come in. But that is preventing, the ego is preventing. So, and there's just, there's things that I feel like if I do that, I will cut my own head.
Well, one of the things I'm really aware of as you're talking about all of this is everything that you're wanting is for the benefit of the team and the organization.
Yeah.
Right. This is all about what, like, you're seeing things that could go wrong, that could harm the team and the organization. You're wanting to make a contribution that's going to make things better, not just for yourself. This feels like a big piece of this. Like, you really want to contribute, right?
Yeah. I really want to serve. Yeah.
Yeah. I really get that. So, Renee, want to also check in, because we're going to start moving to closure on the conversation in a moment or so. Yeah. First of all, what are you discovering through our conversation?
You're reminding me of motives that I have that I take for granted because they're so natural to me.
Yeah.
But when you remind me like this, I realize how scary this must be sometimes for others as well. Because I am really not interested in my sole benefit. Actually, I was given notice few weeks ago.
Wow.
And so it's really not about me. It's about what I see as the greater good for something that we believe in.
Yeah.
In this project. And despite me, I would like to make sure that we can leave a positive mark. And so, and I see that many others are much more self-protective than I am. And so that could be also scary for others.
Well, what I'm really seeing is, but your kindness and your generosity here, it's quite inspiring.
Okay, I have not seen it like that. Thank you.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. And so as we start to move to closure here, what would be a next step that would support you, serve you in this?
What do you mean exactly? A next step for me?
Next step. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really stuck. I don't know. Personally, I am 8 months pregnant. And so it's a lot that comes together at that moment. And I have to carefully weigh which part gets attention when and how much and so forth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting moment in my life.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, and I want to make sure that also that you're getting the benefit of whatever we can achieve in this conversation. So it doesn't have to be anything big. There might be a little thing, could be a conversation you have with somebody, but something to let you know that you're on the right track with this.
I think the way you feedbacked or you mirrored back what you see behind my actions and what I talk about helps me to remind myself these things and sort of go back to that core, if you will, and certainly just keep doing even more. What I'm doing is that, my favorite sentence of the coaching world, I'm sure you know it, it's life happens for me, not to me.
Life happens for you, not to you. Right. Well, that's
yes,
part
exactly.
of, that's all. Yeah, that's part of what I'm hearing too, as what you're wanting for yourself is to feel more empowered rather than having to be constrained.
Yeah, but sometimes, I mean, this looks like a bad message, right? She's 8 months pregnant. She got noticed, but probably some opportunities coming that I just can't see right now. And yeah, so I really have to trust the process.
Okay. Well, again, I want to make sure that we leave you with some next step, something to do for yourself, something to do for your organization or your team. It could be a little step, it could be a big step. What would serve you?
I think contributing more. Also, again, I have some ideas to try and save my colleagues that they can stay. And so I can, have certain conversations and try to, boost up that image, which they really deserve. So I think those would be my next steps. Yeah.
Right. To have those encouraging conversations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what sort of accountability would support you in like making sure you do that and that you do it in the way that you want to?
I'll take a note after this.
Okay.
And what I write down, I do.
What you write down, you do. Yeah.
So
terrific.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, Renee, I first of all want to just acknowledge your courage in having this conversation in front of all these people, because it can be quite vulnerable. And yeah, seeing some appreciation from the group as well. And also just let you know, like what I see here is a person with so much to offer. And what I'm hoping for you is that those opportunities unlock for you more and more in the future.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to call this coaching session finished for now, and we're going to be debriefing, talking about it. So you get to contribute to that conversation as well.
I look forward to that. Thank you so much, Chuck.
Absolutely, and best of luck with the road ahead. It's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anthony, you're on mute. Welcome back.
I'm just saying thank you, Chuck. What we want to do now is we want to throw it open to all our wonderful participants to notice what skills you used or how you were being during that coaching, rather than the content. So we're going to do it through, and in fact, there's been some wonderful sharing already. Could I just say, what I'm seeing in the chat box, thank you, Renee. You are smart, amazing, person. Your opportunity is coming. That is what we call both an acknowledgement and a championing. Your leadership comes through clearly and powerfully. Another wonderful acknowledgement.
Yes.
You are seen. You are seen. So what did you notice Chuck do? I mean, there's already some comments and observations.
Yeah, inviting people to put that in the chat.
Yeah,
like
contribute through the chat. Well, we might actually start while we're waiting. What are you noticing? Great, powerful question. And it helps bring the shift to the coachee. She helps her to notice the shift in herself. Yeah. Chuck championed the client. It's a very specific coaching skill where we have the confidence to know that the client will be and do what she really wants. Yeah. And at the end, there was an action. So in our model, we always talk about deepening the learning and forwarding the action. We would make up that the client is in a different place at the end of that coaching than she was at the beginning.
Some accountability. Oh, metaphor question. What metaphor did I use? I don't remember.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, that's okay.
But as someone says, lots of validation, lots of repeating back in the same or slightly altered words. We could call that mirroring, or we call it in our model what we call articulating what's going on. So it can simply be a repetition of the words, but it can be also an energetic. There was a time early when Chuck said, "Oh, I felt that shift," and so he noticed at a level beyond the normal hearing. So we call listening at level 2 and level 3. Gave it back to the client, and the client accepted it. Yes, that is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Discovering what was important to her, championing her. Yeah. Direct impact. Absolutely. Sometimes just noticing a different angle on what a person is saying. Oftentimes I like to notice patterns and articulate those back to the client. So in this case, noticing like everything that Renee was wanting was not for herself. That got my attention. That was interesting. Just to say that back, because I wasn't sure if she had heard that.
Well, actually, Chuck, she actually told you that she hadn't heard that before, or that's what was so important to her. So in a way, the coach is noticing what is important to the client, and we might call that the vision or the values. I mean, that word that came up all the time, freedom or contribution, absolutely crucial to the client.
Yeah, exactly. So those are things I could also say, like freedom is really important to you.
Yeah.
That kind of statement.
And you said quite often, what I'm hearing is, or what I'm feeling is, you were not being passive. You were giving the client something to bounce back from. It's not like, coaches don't go lie back on the couch and go, tell me about it.
Yeah.
We're very much in an active relationship.
Yes. And sometimes those things don't land for the client.
No.
And that's okay.
So we have another part of our model, which is called dancing in this moment. If that question doesn't land, the next one might.
Yeah.
For example, I mean, Renee, forgive me, I'm talking a little bit about the content, but when you said something like, what's the next step? The client said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Chuck didn't go, oh no, what am I going to do here now? He completely stayed with the client.
Well, and that part of the conversation can be a little uncomfortable because once people start moving toward taking action, there's often going to be some resistance or pushback. And so I think for us as coaches to be gently persistent is important.
Yeah, I think it's scary to make changes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if we produce love and trust as well
Yes.
as confidence, then it's a gift to the clients.
Well, and I think in this case too, I also wanted to respect that any action that Renee might take toward what she's wanting could be risky.
Yes.
So I'm not, that my job as coach is to respect that and not actually like push her to do it. She really gets to choose. Right. And I think that was really important too. Like,
Yeah.
it's important that this client in this situation is really knowing that she's a choice here.
Yes, absolutely. And you very specifically said it could be something very little, something very small, more
Yes,
than
yes,
once.
yes, exactly.
And we as coaches believe the smallest change can have a huge impact. We often use the metaphor of a ship turning 1 degree. By the time it reaches the other side of the ocean, it's in a totally different place.
Yeah. And with this kind of topic, the action to take is usually a conversation or several conversations, almost always, right? It's like someone's going to talk to somebody, and that could be small or big. We actually don't even know until the conversation happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a way, we're not attached. And yet you did ask for accountability. And you didn't say, how would you want to be accountable to me? Right. Basically, we gave it to the client, or you gave it to the client.
Yeah, in this case, she said, if I write it down, I'm going to do it. Okay,
Yeah.
I trust that. You heard how firm she was, right?
Yeah. Well, again, you were listening at level 2 and 3. There was a big okay.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. All right.
Yeah. So if I were her coach, I might go, I'll tuck that one in the back of my heart or my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. Some good inputs, interesting inputs here from, and I'm not sure quite how you say your name, Sovadi. Navigating out of external circumstances to focus inward. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. If I get too invested as the coach in how do we fix this issue for you, I can ignore the actual human being in front of me. And so my whole priority as coach is how do we grow this person?
Absolutely. So if you focus on the problem, you'll just get more problems. If you focus on growing the person, you're growing capacity.
Yes.
Segolene notes that you held silence. Goodness me, the power of silence.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think he says being silent.
Yes.
I think that is a model of I'm with you, I trust you, and I'm allowing you to have your own process.
Yeah. Well, look, and I think there's someone asking about Tom is asking about there's some pain evident. Was it appropriate to look at this? Yeah, absolutely. And in a longer session, that would be a great direction to go. I could have gone there. But also, it's interesting. Renee saying, what pain are you referring to? Also, it might not be accurate. So I think it's worth it if you see something like that to check it out with the client. That sounds painful. And the client might say, no, it's not painful, just frustrating. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
you
actually, Tom is saying there was some pain evident. Was it appropriate to look at this? Sorry, did you already answer that?
That's where I was going. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
You got it. Yeah. I'm wondering, Anthony, given our timing here, maybe we could also look at some of the questions in the Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. So
see. Oh, and there are no questions.
Okay, so we invite questions. We'll have to make some up. Yay.
Yeah.
So I noticed that there weren't questions. So I actually have a couple questions to help facilitate a dialogue while we wait for some in.
Yes. And while we're going here with Susan, feel free to put anything in the Q&A that you would like us to answer.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Susan. Sorry.
Okay, so one question is, there are people who are professional coaches that do this for a living and that have 1-hour sessions every week and they coach their clients that way. And then there's like this webinar is all about coaching within a work context and how managers in particular could potentially use coaching skills at work. So could you talk a little bit about what it looks like to be using coaching skills in an organization without being an official professional coach.
Sure, and let me just get my camera to unblur me if I can. Yeah, so and sometimes we call this like big C versus little C coaching. So just to kind of elaborate on Susan's question, there's the coaching when you have I'm your coach, you're my client, we meet on a regular basis, we have a clear designed alliance that I'm coaching you. That was maybe what we call the big C coaching, where it's more formalized. And then there's also the day-to-day coaching where a manager might just use coaching skills, occasionally ask, really good open-ended questions, what we call powerful questions. So that would be the contrast here. And I think the big difference for me is if you're big C coaching, you're driving an agenda. And it's the client's agenda. Like once you're coaching, you're driving an agenda that the client has signed up for, has actually articulated, and I as a coach am committed to that agenda. In little C coaching, there isn't necessarily alignment on an agenda. I'm just using a skill. So what would you add, Antony?
I would say exactly the same, Chuck. It's any and all of the coaching skills can be used in a work environment without being big C. For example, you started off, and I'm going to use our jargon here, you started off by designing the alliance.
Yes.
Now, we could do that at the beginning of every meeting.
Yeah.
How are you? And really mean it. What do you need or want from the meeting? What would be a success? That sounds really businesslike.
Absolutely.
Powerful questions like what resources do you need? What challenges have you got? What are you enjoying? What are you celebrating? Rather than, okay, well done, let's get on to the next problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just had two more that you did. Acknowledgement.
Yeah.
You are the hottest, most clever software writer that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And I know that you're going to be able to untie the knot of this problem that you've been given to solve. I mean, I exaggerate a little for effect, but how often do you get acknowledged or championed at work?
Yes.
You don't.
I'm so appreciating that you're actually giving specific examples of like how these skills can be used in what we would call the little C coaching, like the day-to-day coaching interactions, because they're also important. So we have access to all of these. And in all the examples Antony was just giving, none of those were driving a specific agenda. It was on the fly, it was just human to human. Maybe I'm listening a little better. I'm asking useful questions, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a paradox because we have goals and actions in business. And if we're empowered and resonant, then those goals and actions are going to be so much easier.
Yes. So I'm noticing now we've got a bunch of questions in the Q&A, so we can start working on those too. Susan, did you have something else before we go there?
No, just thank you for answering that. I mean, for me, when I speak, a lot of people are so focused on accomplishing their goals and working and can forget about the relationship. And leaders and managers who have coaching skills, they become relational leaders that empower others. And it just creates so much more a culture of engagement, satisfaction, all of that. Do you need me to stay on? I can go backstage and you can have access to the questions, or do you want me to read them out for you?
It's nice having you here. And
it's nice having you here.
And I'm good with the questions as they are here too. So So what are some strategies that can be used to shift a client's focus from external frustrations to growing themselves?
Oh, what a great question.
Yeah. Go for it, Antony.
Well, I would say, first of all, allow them to, we have the concept of venting, allow them to complain and moan and to know that they're being witnessed and seen with that. And then turn them towards what do they really want. They always say that a complaint is a need that's not met. So then you really go, well, what is it that you want? What's important to you? And that will often start the shift. Chuck, would you add something to that?
Well, I'm appreciating that you're focusing on allowing people to express their frustrations. It's super important, I think, for people to just have a place where they can say, this sucks. I'm really frustrated. I don't know what to do. I feel helpless. So having a safe place where people can say that can really be powerful.
Yeah.
And I also think, I know that I'll stop here because I'm seeing a bunch of questions here.
Okay.
So,
Well, I just want to add one thing. We
Yes.
spend a whole course in our core curriculum pointing people that they are empowered and at choice.
Yes.
And often what prompts that sort of coaching is that they're stuck, they're frustrated.
Right.
But it's because they're seeing that particular issue in a particular way. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So Lynn is asking a question of Renee. And Renee, you're welcome to answer in the chat if you're okay with this. So she's saying, how did Renee feel about the questions being put back on her? Did you notice or experience that while it was happening? So not quite sure. And Renee, you're welcome to do whatever you like with that, and you can answer in the chat. Okay. Advice for new coaches on not getting stuck in your own head trying to ask the right question.
Yes. Okay. Well, here's a tip.
Yes,
here's a tip. Learn about 3 or 4 simple questions and keep using the same ones. Your client will not notice them. What's important? What do you really want? Oh, what's that like? Oh, you said ripe bananas. What does ripe bananas mean for you?
Yeah.
There you go. That's all you need to do.
Well, one I would add,
or something more, Chuck.
Yeah, I would say also, really, I think coaches get stuck in that question forming and they forget that they can actually input into the conversation.
Yes.
So one thing that's really valuable is to notice and articulate what you're noticing. Yeah. So just to say, I'm noticing that this feels very heavy for you. I'm noticing that you use the word freedom 5 times, right? Just whatever you're noticing, articulate that back. That could be more interesting than a question.
Yeah, you did that beautifully in your demo. And of course, then the client goes, oh, is that what I'm doing? Oh, then they get more insight.
Yeah. So another one, what tips do you notice? What tips on intruding? When is it needed? I have trouble knowing when to pause the client's story for the benefit of their coaching. Ooh, yeah. Well, I guess where I go with that is there's no right answer to it, but you'll notice when you're getting too much detail, and you don't need it. So you can often interrupt when there's too much detail, when you're getting lost, when more clarity is needed. So I don't know, what would you add, Antony?
I would say sooner rather than later. And I would say almost the first time you feel that this is going on too long, intrude. Because the client will always say, no, this is really important. I need to tell you this. And remember that they know all this and you don't need to know it.
Yeah.
You really only want what's here now, rather than, oh, well, I was born at an early age. And then,
Yeah. If the client already knows it, I don't need to hear it.
Yeah.
So how do you define success in coaching? What result do you hope to see by the end of your work with a client? Well, normally that will be defined at the beginning of each session. So you could say to a client, what do you want to come away with at the end of this session? Yep. And so that will sort of help define the success of the coaching session.
Well, in a way that's tactical. I think there's also a need for a strategic goal in the coaching. What did you want to get from the coaching? Oh, I wanted more empowerment at work, or I wanted a new job. But I think the short answer is when you witness a client growing to the point that they can actually be and do it for themselves. We're not here to create dependency.
Yeah, I'm always looking at, and my definition would be resourcefulness. So
yes.
So if the client finishes the session feeling more resourceful than they felt at the beginning, that's good enough for me. That's plenty. All right. Can you talk about being versus doing and how that showed up in today's demo?
Well, shall I dive in again? Because
please,
you were the coach.
Yeah, I'm like, I just did it. So I'm a little. Go for it.
Well, I would say the being grew, and Renee, forgive me if this is talking a little bit about you, in the self-awareness and the realization of what was important to her.
Yeah.
So that would be values work. So she is now reinforced. Oh, yes. And I think even saying what her impact in the world is and owning it, there was an owning of that impact in the world. That was the being.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think, and this is what I think is really important here too. Our world sort of measures things in productivity and results because they're visible and measurable. But I think the bigger benefit of coaching sometimes is in that being place of somebody just had a discovery. She noticed something about herself that she hadn't been focusing on as much as she is now. That's a being shift. That's more of a being shift than a doing shift.
Yeah.
So one more question in the Q&A. When do you redirect someone to external support, such as therapy, if you as a coach see it would be helpful? Just saying that's not what I didn't see a need for that in this coaching. Yeah,
it's a question that we get all the time from new coaches, and it so rarely happens. And my feeling is that you will recognize it.
Yeah.
Particularly when the client, we call about circling, when they never forward the action, they never deepen the learning, there is no progress. And then I would say then you need to reach out and say you might need some other form of help. And clients are self-selecting as wanting to take action and grow.
Yeah. I think I would also go on, what is the topic? There are topics that lend themselves really well to coaching, and there are topics that just don't work in coaching. I had this really painful experience in my previous job and I need to work through it. And if it was particularly traumatizing, that might be a therapy topic.
Yeah. Savadi, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, points to, there's a great article on the Coactive site, which points to the difference between therapy and coaching and when you might have to lean into therapy.
Yeah. All right, a bunch more showing up here in the chat. Let's see.
There was one earlier which said,
insight.
what is the difference between coaching and leadership coaching?
No difference. I mean,
yeah, okay. No difference.
Honestly, yeah, for me, when I'm mostly coach leaders. And for me, it's the question in my head all the way through the coaching session is how do we grow this leader? And if I'm coaching you, Antony, how do you and I grow the leader that you are? Right? That's what I'm coaching for. Yeah.
So I would say you allow me to know who I am, what's important to me, and to allow me to accept that and to accept the impact I have on the world when I am that way.
Yes. And that goes to Kassia's question. How do you avoid getting stuck in the client's challenge versus staying focused on the agenda? My agenda is grow this leader. The challenge is content for the conversation. So how do we use this challenge to grow this person? And that's my relationship with the challenge. Another way, and I said this to somebody yesterday in a session, actually. What am I fascinated by as a coach? I'm not fascinated by your problem. I'm fascinated by you.
Yeah.
Interesting question. Another one from Savadi. What new insight will you take away from this demo webinar? Wow. For us, what new insights do we take away? Interesting. Huh.
I've been looking from such a technical standpoint on my end that the insight just wouldn't sound as, impressive.
Right.
Well, I may speak. I loved Chuck's gentle way of articulating what's going on by simply saying, oh, what I'm hearing is, it almost sounds quizzical when he says it, like, I may be wrong, but what I'm hearing about that is, or what I'm noticing is, that you're not passive as a coach.
Yeah.
you're in a relationship where the two of you are working together.
I think this one for me was a great reminder of the fact that I never know, I can never anticipate or even know what parts of the conversation are going to have the greatest impact for the client, right? Like just hearing Renee reflect back, oh, and I'm like, oh, that's cool that was really powerful for you. I wouldn't have known which part of the conversation would have accomplished that for her.
Sure.
So just being ready for that, really interesting.
Thing
Great
that
question from, yeah, go ahead, Susan.
I'd love to just add. So one of the things in coactive is to dance in this moment and
Yes.
trust that you don't need to pre-plan. So one thing that I noticed in this one was I was trying to get people to ask questions in advance. What questions do you want answered at the end of the webinar? And no questions were coming up. But dancing in this moment generated a ton of questions and curiosity. And so it really is a powerful cornerstone.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. And Caitlin's asking, what ways besides supervision do you each regularly reflect on and continue to build your own coaching practice? Yeah, well, I think the big one, it doesn't have to be formal supervision, but actually having people hear my coaching, reflect on my coaching, hearing my own coaching. I get to listen to recordings of my own coaching all the time. It's humbling, you have to get used to the sound of your own voice first. But it's great reflection on continuing to improve. So yeah. I would say formally or informally, hear your own coaching and get other people to hear it too.
Yeah. I would highly recommend forming trios with fellow coaches and following the pattern we have in our course, being a coach, then the client, then the observer, and you grow together. The rigor and the strength of the feedback improves all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're coming to the end of the webinar. We are actually at the end of the webinar. So I just wanted to thank you both. Thank you, Antony. Thank you, Chuck, so much for giving us your time and for demonstrating the power of coactive coaching. Thank you so much, Renee, for volunteering to be our coachee and for being present here with us. It couldn't have happened without you. We really appreciate you. And thank you, everybody, for coming here and participating so wholly in the chat and asking your questions. We really appreciate everything that's happened here in this hour together. And we do this once a month. This month it was work related. Next month it will just be general related. So come back as many times as you want. We'd love to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you to Susan and Vibhuti for supporting us all the way through. Thank you so much.
Thank you.